Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the Socialography YouTube channel. Today we're going to take a look at 5 of the worst marketing fails of all time, aka what I could find on the internet. But before we get started, if you're a fan of cringeworthy marketing fails, or you want to learn what you should do in addition to what you shouldn't do when it comes to marketing, then you've come to the right place. So go ahead and introduce yourself to the like button, and then let them know that you'll be sticking around by hitting the subscribe button while you're down there. Alright, let's get into today's top 5 fails.
Do just what you want. You're the one I trust.
Today's top 5 fails are brought to you by Twitter, because all of these atrocities were committed in 140 characters or less. It really doesn't take much, does it? On February 3rd, 2011, Kenneth Cole, as in the designer Kenneth Cole, not just the brand, tweeted, quote, "Millions are in uproar in Cairo. Rumor is they heard our new spring collection is now available online at," and then included a link to the spring collection. Signing the tweet, KC, letting everyone know that it was Kenneth Cole himself tweeting that and not just one of the social media managers. Now, at the time of that tweet, protests in Egypt were reaching a tipping point, and the Egyptian Revolution of 2011 was well underway. Millions of protesters had taken to the streets to protest against police brutality, lack of political freedoms and civil liberties, high unemployment, corruption, and they were demanding the overthrow of then Egyptian President Hosni Mubarak, who had been in power for the past 30 years. Now, eventually Mubarak would resign as president and the Supreme Court would take over the government in the interim, but not before violent clashes broke out between the protesters and security forces. And during that time, 846 people died and over 6,000 people were injured. And just thinking back to some of the images that were coming out of Egypt during that time, I could have never imagined equating what I was seeing happening to the people of Egypt at the hands of their government to being excited about a new spring collection. Like, it's just, I don't know how he thought that would go over, but it didn't go over well. And as you can imagine, there was a very swift negative reaction to the tweet, and he was eventually forced to take it down and issue an apology. But part of me thinks that he knew exactly what he was doing, and the uproar that the tweet actually caused was part of what he wanted to happen, especially after learning that this wasn't the first time he was in the headlines after making insensitive remarks. Shortly after 9/11, he gave a quote to the Daily Mail. I'm not sure in what context, but the quote said, "Important moments like this are a time to reflect, to remind us, sometimes, that it's not only important what you wear, but it's also important to be aware." Like, what does that even mean? Be aware of what, Kenneth? And what does what you wear have to do with 9/11?
Do just what you want.
In March of 2016, just as college students from all over the country were beginning their annual southward migration to Mexico, where they consume as much tequila as humanly possible and do traditional mating rituals like keg stands and drunk karaoke, also known as spring break, the US State Department posted what they thought was a timely tweet with a warning for spring breakers about the dangers of being ugly. Y'all, it's dangerous, take my word for it. The tweet read, "Not a 10 in the US, then not a 10 overseas. Beware of being lured into buying expensive drinks, or worse, being robbed." Hashtag spring breaking badly. Is that a reference to Breaking Bad? No, I don't think so. So basically, if you're ugly in your everyday life and you go out of the country, then you're still ugly, and if anyone shows you any kind of interest, they're definitely trying to rob you. See, now the problem with that logic is that they failed to realize that with enough tequila, everyone's a 10. Anyway, a lot of people were super offended by the tweet. Some people thought it was hilarious. Some people thought it was a bit out of touch for the US government to be insulting people. And ultimately, I think if you're trying to get a message of warning across to a particular group of people, it's probably best not to insult them in the process.
Take me to your heart.
On today's episode of What Inanimate Object Are Women Being Compared To, we have Exhibit A, pancakes. In October of 2015, IHOP tweeted what would have been a pretty appetizing picture of pancakes if it weren't for the text that came along with the picture, which read, quote, "flat but has a great personality." Really, IHOP? Listen, when the marketing trend of giving personalities to brand social media accounts began, we didn't mean make the personality sexist. As you can imagine, this clearly sexist tweet drew quite a bit of backlash. Even Jake Tapper had something to say about it. And as usual, the tweet was eventually deleted, and IHOP did issue an apology where they called the tweet, quote, "dumb and immature." Yeah, you could call it that. But you know what? At least it gave Sarah the opportunity to tweet this in response. This next fail is a cautionary tale to all social media managers out there about jumping onto a trending hashtag without stopping to see why it's trending first. In September of 2014, the hashtag #WhyIStayed was trending on Twitter worldwide in response to the recently released, at the time, video of Ray Rice, his wife, in an elevator. Women and men used the hashtag to tell their story about why they stayed in an abusive relationship, bringing light to the fact that it's much harder than you think to get out of an abusive situation like that. And questions like, well, why didn't you just leave, are often painful, victim blaming, and just not helpful. But whoever was running the Digiorno Twitter account at the time didn't know that. And they decided to jump on the trending hashtag and tweeted hashtag #WhyIStayed. You had pizza. Now, they were almost immediately called out for this tweet because, like I said, the hashtag was trending, so a lot of people were paying attention to it and using it. But they very quickly deleted the tweet and immediately issued an apology, basically saying that they did not read what the hashtag was about before posting the tweet. Now, they also continued apologizing profusely to a lot of the people who tweeted at them individually, saying how horrible they felt and that it was an honest mistake. Now, having worked in social media myself, I can honestly relate to the absolutely nauseating feeling of realizing the horrors of a mistake that you made on a client's or your company's social media account. You know that feeling where like you can feel all the blood leaving your face and like your stomach drops and you're just like, oh shit. And none of my mistakes were that public or that bad or featured on a YouTube video, so I can't even imagine how that person felt in the moment. But they did the right thing by saying it was absolutely careless of them to publish that tweet and not actually check to see why the hashtag was trending beforehand. And they probably learned a pretty valuable lesson that night. And I applaud the Digiorno communications or social media team for extending the effort of trying to make it just a little bit better by personally responding and apologizing to each person who reached out to them on Twitter. But whew, don't let that be you. Check your hashtags, friends. On April 20th, 2021, justice was served when George Floyd's murderer was convicted on all charges after a 3-week-long trial. The emotions leading up to and during the trial were that of pain and fear and overall distrust that the systems we rely on to bring justice would actually do so in this case. Because everyone knew, had it not been for the bravery of then 17-year-old Darnella Frazier, who got her cell phone out and recorded the entire incident, and then the subsequent months-long nationwide protests that followed, this case most likely never would have gone to trial, and George Floyd's murderers would most likely still be terrorizing the streets of Minneapolis to this day. But at about 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on April 20th, the verdict was delivered. Guilty. Cheers erupted in the streets outside of the courthouse and all over the country because justice, just this once, had been served. Just about every public figure released a statement very shortly after the verdict was read, including a lot of the major sports teams in Minnesota. But for some reason, the Las Vegas Raiders decided that they too wanted to release a statement and tweeted a single black and white image that read, quote, "I can breathe." Now, just like with the previous 4 fails in today's video, this tweet also received very quick and harsh backlash as soon as it was published. And given the circumstances of Floyd's death, a lot of people, myself included, felt that the choice of words were insensitive, inappropriate, and offensive. But unlike the other 4 examples in today's video, this tweet was not deleted and no apology was issued. In fact, the owner of the team, Mark Davis, came out and said that the tweet was his idea, that he saw nothing wrong with it, that he wouldn't be deleting it, and wouldn't be issuing an apology. But I guess we can't be too surprised that he would have such a shitty take, judging by the fact that he leaves the house with his hair looking like this every day. I'm sorry, I had to do it. I'm sorry, Mark. Please don't come for me, I'm poor.
Help me, I'm poor.
You can still see the tweet live on the Raiders Twitter account to this day. Alright, so that's going to do it for today's top 5 fails. Which one did you find the most cringeworthy? Or have you come across any cringeworthy marketing fails you think I should include in my next video? If so, feel free to leave them in the comment section down below, or connect with me on social media and send them to me there. If I choose your idea for one of my future videos, I'll be sure to give you a shout out. If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to introduce yourself to the like button and let them know that you'll be sticking around by hitting the subscribe button before you leave. Hope to see you guys in my next video.